Welcome, NFL football fans. It's that time again. Time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production. And, of course, we're with you here every week. We're up here to Week 6 of the 2016 NFL season. Things just getting stranger and stranger. What can you say? So we're going to go ahead and break everything down here for you. As you know, I do not work alone here. I do only enlist the help of the very, very best. So here he is, a proud Rutgers graduate from somewhere in an undisclosed location in beautiful Southern California. The man many of you already follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and if not, you should be. None other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man?
Charles, great intro. Thanks again, as always. This past weekend, I'm not so sure if I'm a proud Rutgers graduate, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, well, looking at the last week's games here, getting pretty crazy. I mean, we got the Carolina Panthers actually losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, you could blame that on Derek Anderson and that horrible, horrible interception he threw at the 1-yard line. The only person who thought he should be throwing the ball in that situation was Pete Carroll, but that's another story. Anyways, but 1-4 Panthers, but everyone says, oh, well, Derek Anderson lost the game for him, but you got to remember, they were only 1-3 with Cam Newton starting. So, turmoil in Carolina or what?
I think there has to be, and let's not forget the defense letting Tampa Bay run all over them and taking a stupid penalty to and then setting up the Chuck Knobloch of NFL kickers, Roberto Aguayo. Poor guy, thank God he made the kick, or it would have been catastrophic, but he missed a few before that. So it's not like it should even have come down to that last kick. But like we had mentioned in previous weeks, that defense is not the same without Josh Norman. You can point to the offensive side of the ball you want, but that's the issue at hand.
Right, and not only Josh Norman, but remember they had Jared Allen up front. So when you look at the three levels, we always talk about the three levels, defensive line, linebacking core, and then the defensive backs. Josh Norman, you got to wonder, other than the whole thing of being a shutdown corner, just how much he solidified that group of defenders back there, and also Jared Allen and his leadership on the defensive front, because we're talking they gave up 100 rushing yards to Jacquizz Rodgers. Okay, a guy who was on the street just a couple of weeks ago. So Jacquizz Rodgers, and he wasn't getting the edges. He was running right into the teeth of that defense too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the D-line clearly misses something because they're not getting the pass rush they were last year either. And believe me, with the way Jameis Winston plays, they had every opportunity to force him into some turnovers, and there were periods where on third down, third and long, he had enough time to convert. Not like the Panthers of last year.
Exactly. And then, the couple of games, looking at the games that we actually picked, the Dallas Cowboys proving themselves and beating Cincy. And then Matty Ice and his Atlanta Falcons continue to fly high. They go in, they take down the Denver Broncos. And then that Baltimore and Washington game, which Baltimore really, I thought it would be Mike Wallace making the difference. It turns out it's their linebacker, I forget his name, number 57, who shall live in infamy there in Maryland. But getting what should have been close to a pick six. If not, they should have had the ball on the 1-yard line. The score is 13-10 at that point. Instead, he fumbles the ball into the end zone. Washington gets the ball at the 20, and they score the final points of the game. So it's a 16-10 win for the Redskins, and it really coulda, woulda, should have been a 17-13 win for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the process, Mark Trestman, offensive coordinator for the Ravens, no more. And on the plus side, we've got a Marty Morningweg sighting, the infamous architect of the winless Detroit Lions season. So, head's already rolling. I think that's the third offensive coordinator fired in 3 consecutive weeks, if my calculations are correct. But, sloppy game. I know it was windy and all, but the one pick I got right last week, and the Redskins have been gritty. They've been pulling these games out. I guess the near Kirk Cousins mutiny never materialized.
Yeah, that's true, and everyone's that close. And then you got Buffalo, Buffalo beating the Rams this week and taking Rex Ryan off the hot seat. But coaches that may be going on to the hot seat at this point, How about Riverboat Ron in Carolina? And then Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati. You got to think if Cincinnati, I'll say this, if they don't make the playoffs, I think Marvin Lewis is done there. Or maybe at mid-season, if they're floating around, if it's something like a 3-5, maybe he's done. What do you think? What do you see there in Cincy?
Oh, I agree, and I honestly thought after last season's debacle in the playoffs, he should have been on the hot seat. The Brown family has clearly had him on a long leash. But yeah, this is a team that we've hit on it. Dalton doesn't have the weapons he used to, but now even on the defensive side of the ball, they look very sloppy. So yeah, you can push his name to the sports talk radio fodder, hot seat, front burner, whatever the case in. And as for Ron Rivera, yeah, I've got to agree. I don't know if he's lost control of that team or it's the GM Gettleman letting Norman go, if that threw things into a flux. Right. But something is not right there. And hopefully if Cam comes out of concussion protocol this week, maybe they can get better against the Saints. But they're kind of an uphill battle already. I know it's early in the season, but they're going to have to go on a substantial run to really make a move for the division or even a wild card spot.
Yeah, it's true. And 1-4, and as they were saying on everybody's favorite sports network, the last team to get 15 wins in the season and then miss the playoffs, that was the New England Patriots. But of course, they lost Tom Brady the first game of the season. And that gave rise to the legend of Matt Castle, the legend which should have been, but never really should have been, but kind of was, but wasn't. In the end, Castle got paid a lot of money for not doing a whole lot of anything over the next, 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah, we can just call him the Scott Mitchell of that decade.
Not the Rob Johnson? Ooh.
Him too. Yeah, there's a few, but yeah, he's maybe the right-handed Scott Mitchell. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. I'll go with that. And then what about, you talk about Mark Trestman getting canned over there in Baltimore. And, Mark Trestman, he's another one of those guys. He came through Chicago. We remember he tried to right the ship of the Chicago Bears, couldn't do it. Now you got John Fox over there floundering in the Windy City. So what is it? Is it Soldier Field? Is it something about Chicago? Is it the organization? Is it from above or what? Because Fox is really having a tough time there, and there seems to be no end to the misery there in Chicago.
Yeah, there's really not. And, I heard an interview with Jeff Garlin, the actor from Curb Your Enthusiasm
yes.
and the Goldbergs, and he's a huge Bears fan, and he's about ready to cut bait. And he kind of made a really interesting point. He said as long as the McCaskies own that team, and there's a saying once about how George Halas would throw nickels around like manhole covers as a testament to his cheapness, and apparently that's considered with the heirs of his continue with the heirs of his family. I don't know if it's a money thing. I don't know if it's a fact that their front office can't get it together. But like you and I were talking at pre-show production meeting, why would Fox even take that job? He had some money left on the Denver deal. Sit back, do TV for a year. The guy's had health issues. And, I'm sorry, but any team that's got Jay Cutler and is radioactive, just ask Josh McDaniels. The guy traded him the first chance he got. So, yeah, I feel bad for Fox. It's not a winning situation, but look on the bright side. At least it's not Cleveland.
Yeah, that's true. And, other disappointing team, Miami Dolphins at 1-4. Their only win was an overtime win against the Cleveland Browns. But, and I've had to talk a couple of San Diego Chargers fans off the ledge. Now, is that team cursed or what? You look at the injuries, then the way that they're losing games. The week before this, 2 fumbles in the final minute to blow a game against New Orleans. Then this last week with Josh Lambo and the whole, you can't even fumble a hold like that. I haven't seen anything. This is like if you watch movies, the makers of Major League decide to make that about a football team right after they have made the movie Wildcats. Something like that. I don't know, but it's just crazy. And that ending, when the holder fumbles that snap, it just reminded me of North Dallas 40. At least that was in the rain, though.
Yeah, and at least that was fiction.
Right.
Yeah, you make a good point. By the way, I would trademark that idea. It'll be stolen by someone in Hollywood within hours of this show hitting the airwaves. But you could talk about them being cursed, and San Diego's never won a title in anything professionally. But here's the way I look at it. I've been listening to a lot of San Diego sports radio, so it's good to hear all the knee-jerk reactions on Monday morning. But there's two things at play. The injuries, you hear a number of people theorize that they don't have top-of-the-line facilities. The Spanos family, you want to talk about nickel and diming. Apparently they're not willing to invest the money like some other teams are. And two, you look at the leadership, you look at the coaching. And I'm sorry, they've had a long history of underachieving coaches, the latest and greatest being Mike McCoy. And at some point, you are the leader of that team, and you got to impose your will on it. And I think back to the Giants and the fumble with Joe Pisarcik, and essentially the Mara family cleaned house at that organization. They put in George Young, who not only was great at drafting talent, but pretty stubborn and opinionated guy. Bill Parcells eventually becomes the head coach. The rest is history, and I think that's what you need. You look at it with the Patriots, a team that had made it to Super Bowls but could never turn the corner with Belichick. I mean, the list goes on. You can even go into the college game. Look at how Jim Harbaugh has now turned around Michigan in no time. So I think that those two factors are part and parcel with the problem. And Phillip Rivers is just going to toil away Dan Marino-like without making a Super Bowl and putting up great numbers and never have anything to show for it.
Yeah, that's true. So, hey, you San Diego Chargers fans out there, just hang in there. My heart goes out to you. And it's one of those cities, you almost think about Cleveland, too. Remember, Bill Belichick couldn't even win in Cleveland, so sometimes it's just something that's in the air. So let's go ahead and get into the picks of this week. And remember, we do our Gambler's Delight special, which a lot of you want to stay tuned for. We're now at 4-0. Last week's Gambler's Delight, it was Mr. Lardieri who said to take Detroit plus the 3.5 points against Philadelphia. Of course, Detroit takes care of that. And it was yours truly who said to go ahead and play. I've always gone with the over-unders here. So I said to take the under on the Monday night game. Under, I believe it was right around 42-44 with Tampa Bay and Carolina. I said it'd be kind of a slugfest. It'd be ground and pound. That's sure exactly what it was, 16-13. So as I said last week, you can thank me later. You can go ahead and thank me. And remember, any of you who are at Vegas and put down some money, you can feel free to send me a finder's fee or something. Just send me through PayPal.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you just take me to Vegas with you, I'll be happy. I'm not even asking for big bucks.
Okay, so games of the week, we're going to pick 3 of the most intriguing matchups. So let's go ahead and get to the first one. And here we've got an NFC South duel, the Carolina Panthers, who are floundering at 1-3 in New Orleans to take on, they're 1-4. The Saints now are 1-3, coming off that bye. So the Saints 1-3. They're at home where they used to be unbeatable in New Orleans, but a desperate Carolina team going into New Orleans to take on the high-flying, high-scoring Saints. Mr. Lardieri, how do you see this one?
I'm going to go with the theory. I mean, I know it's Tuesday, it's early in the week, but all signs point to Cam Newton returning, so I will go along with that, given the fact that their backs are against the wall and the Saints' defense is notoriously porous. I think the Panthers get back on track. It was a winnable game against the Buccaneers. They made some errors, questionable play calling and all, but I'll take a foggy Cam over 100% Derek Anderson any day of the week. I know last year when they played, it turned into a shootout. Wouldn't be surprised if that happened again with the way the Panthers D is playing, but I got to think Cam rightens a ship, and if not, then we've got a huge year-over-year tank job story that I don't think we've seen in a long, long time in the NFL, but I'll stick with the Panthers.
Okay, well, you know what, looking at how the Panthers have played this year, and like I said at the start, you can blame that loss on Derek Anderson, but still, they were only 1-3 with Cam in there, and Cam, clearly this is not the same quarterback who played last year. I don't know what happened exactly, if it's a confidence issue or what. But we know the Saints are going to come out there. They're going to put up points. And Carolina has not proven they can really score any points. They're going to need to get at least 30 to beat New Orleans because their defense isn't stopping anyone. They're giving up the deep routes and the short game. All they got is in the middle. There, Luke Kuechly is doing his job. But you can get past, you can get a few yards up front, you can go deep on them. So I think all signs here point to New Orleans. New Orleans wins this game, and then Riverboat Ron, it's going to be your turn on the hot seat when Carolina drops to 1-5.
I like that we're disagreeing a lot, but that said, I don't like that you're kicking my butt every week, so already we're off to a bad start on my side of the ledger.
Okay, so the next game, Philadelphia. Philadelphia sitting at 3-1, a big division matchup here. Philadelphia in Washington to take on the 3-2 Washington Redskins. Philadelphia, of course, they lost the first game last week to Detroit. In Washington, Washington won them by the narrowest of margins. Well, I'll go ahead and pick this one first. I like actually what both teams are doing, and I like the way that Washington is able to scrape out wins here. But Philadelphia going in, I think, against just a depleted secondary there that Washington really has, and I like Philadelphia. I like Wentz to get back on track. So I'm going to go Philly in this one in Washington to get to 4-1. What do you think?
You know, I really don't have a dog in the fight from a personal NFL fan level here in this game. I want both teams to lose to help the Giants, so I'll separate that. And I don't know why. I've had this hunch last week, and by the narrowest of margins, the Redskins won, but I just have this feeling they're going to hang around all year. I like the way, even though they are dependent on defense and have had injuries on both sides of the ball, that Gruden's kind of kept that team together, and they get plays when they need them, and Cousins is doing just enough to win. The other fact is, I just kind of feel like, and you saw this last week with the Lions, even though they tried their best to give the game back to the Eagles, but I think teams are in the proverbial book on Carson Wentz. They're kind of figuring it out, and I really don't think that Ryan Matthews is going to scare too many teams in this league, at least until he gets hurt again and backup steps up to play for him. But I'm going to go with the Redskins again, just because they're at home, and in games like this, I feel like you throw everything out the window. Even if one team's 3-10 and the other's 10-3, these turn into dogfights, and wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Jackson makes some sort of miraculous comeback and shows up his former team. So I'll go Washington again.
Okay, fantastic. So we disagree on another one. I love it. I love it. I love it. Final game here. Atlanta Falcons, high-flying Atlanta Falcons, who have taken down in succession the Carolina Panthers and the Denver Broncos. Now they're going to face another Super Bowl team in the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, where Seattle is just about unbeatable, going in there at 4-1. Seattle coming in at 3-1. And Chris, I'll go ahead and let you take this one. Irresistible force being that Atlanta offense. The immovable object being that Seattle defense. Who do you like in this one?
I think it'll be a good game. Don't expect a shootout by any means, and I'm really impressed with what the Falcons did. Another game I got wrong last week, but you've got the Seahawks at home coming off a bye. Russell Wilson with his live-in physical therapist or whatever he is, giving him an extra week to heal up that knee.
Yeah.
I think the deep being well-rested is going to be the key here. Kind of surprised with the way Denver played Atlanta, but I don't see Pete Carroll's scheme really enabling the Falcons to light it up. I'll go out on a limb and say Julio Jones is not going to have anywhere near 300 or 200 yards for that matter on Richard Sherman and co. And one player to look out for I've been impressed with this year, kind of flying below the radar. With Thomas Rawls hurt, Kristen Michaels done a nice job stepping in. I think he controls the ball, and then that frees up the Jimmy Graham, who's I don't know, disappeared somewhat last year.
Right.
Look for him to also have a good game, and as long as Russell Wilson can walk on one leg, I think you've got to pick the Seahawks at home.
Yeah, there you go. And you know what? I tend to agree with you here. I do think it's going to be played a little bit more close to the vest, because these are kind of games where Matt Ryan, he tends to get a little shaky. I don't think head coach Dan Quinn is going to have him going deep a whole lot. Mid-range patterns, a lot of Devonta Freeman, so it's going to be really about the ground game and ball control, but that plays into Seattle's hands. So, and I don't see Richard Sherman giving up crucial big plays to Julio Jones, so I'm going to go ahead and take Seattle here too. Should be a good game, some old school football.
Yeah, definitely. I think a real slugfest on both sides of the ball.
So just to recap here, Carolina and New Orleans, we split on that one. Chris is going with Carolina. I'm going to take New Orleans. And then with Philadelphia and Washington, we split again. Chris goes with Washington. I'm taking Philadelphia. And then we both agree that Seattle gets back on track and they take care of business against the Falcons at home. So now all of you out there, here's our new segment we just started a few weeks ago. If you happen to be in Vegas and you got $10 burning in your pocket and you're standing in front of the sports book and you got one football bet you want to make, this is our Gambler's Delight special. Now last week, Chris told you to take Detroit plus 3.5, and that was a good bet right there. You would have won. And also I said to play the under on the Monday night game with Tampa Bay and Carolina. Would have won that one too. Mr. Lardieri, what have you got for us this week? Gambler's Delight.
Well, to prove my objectivity and the fact that I'm treating this as an investor, and for the record, I do not gamble. I only would if I was in the state of Nevada. Past performance does not guarantee future results, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to keep with my theme of picking an underdog. Ran this by the Brain Trust here, namely my 8-year-old son who loves football probably more than I do, and not trying to teach him to be a degenerate gambler, but I was just going through, and he was asking me what my one, as I call it, my one long shot pick. I don't even tell him it's my Gambler's Delight, and we identified a couple games, this being one of them. The Dallas Cowboys are getting 4 points going to Lambeau Field. Got this team, teams getting at least 3 to 3.5 points, and 4 looks like a good number to me. And the reason I'm going to recommend taking Dallas at +4, twofold. One, Dak Prescott's really doing well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's lights out. I'm not saying he's going to be Rookie of the Year, but the guy's clearly doing enough, and frankly, he's outplaying Eli Manning. So I'm impressed with what I've seen so far. That offensive line is one of the best, if not the, in football. They've been controlling the ball with Ezekiel Elliott. And looking at last week's game, if the Giants had any semblance of a running game or a quarterback who can convert on third down, they beat the Packers. I was not that impressed with the Packers' offense. The Giants' D played well. They have not been playing great, but they did just enough stops on Rodgers, and that team really doesn't have much of a running game. And I think Dallas can hang around. At the worst, they lose a close one, keeping with my my theme of the previous 2 winning weeks. But wouldn't be surprised if Dallas sneaks one out here. As long as I know Dez isn't going to play, I don't believe so. We don't have to run the risk of him. Is it a catch? Is it not a catch? Determining the outcome of the game. So take your entertainment money and place it on the Cowboys, I say.
There you go. Okay, and we got to remember the Cowboys have been getting that done without Dez Bryant on the field too, even more impressive. So what I'm going to do is stick with my theme of over-unders, and the game I'm going to tell you to take is Atlanta at Seattle. The over-under is 46. This is going to be a slugfest, so play the under on Atlanta and Seattle. Atlanta's going to want to play it close to the vest. Seattle doesn't really open it up too much either, but they win those types of games. Doesn't matter who wins or loses here. Just play the under. It's under 46. Take the under. Enjoy the game. And, as I always say, you can thank me next week.
Let's keep it going, week 3.
Okay, before we go ahead and sign off here, remember you can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. Mr. Lardieri, any final words for the football-loving public out there?
Yeah, this season's really wide open, and there's no one dominant team, and I know the return of Tom Brady was much ballyhooed and impressive, albeit against the Browns, but really right now I'm just amazed at the Vikings with that Sam Bradford at quarterback, no Adrian Peterson, kind of an RB by committee, and that phenomenal defense, better than the Broncos statistically right now, by the way. Undefeated. That's a story to keep your eye on there. I'm very impressed by that team. Even having injuries, you hear, this team had injuries, we lost this guy. Well, the Vikings really don't use that as an excuse. Very impressive to me. On the flip side, the precipitous fall of the New York Jets. I didn't really think they'd be a playoff team this year due to the strength of schedule issue, but this team looks like you could stick a fork in them. With the way the Cardinals played last Thursday night, the type of coach that Bruce Arians is, he might actually put an end to their season in mid-October before it's even done. So right there are 2 teams going in completely opposite directions. You look at, there's some other surprises too. I mean, the fact that the Colts are still hanging around and winning with that lack of talent. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but that's pretty impressive considering they're general manager, Ryan Grigson, loves to throw Andrew Luck under the bus for eating up so much salary cap money. Oh, wait, Grigson's the one who signed him to that contract.
Right.
But, yeah, I feel bad for Luck, but I got to tell you, he and T.Y. Hilton are gamers, and even if they're an 8-8 team this year, I'm impressed by what they've been doing. Those guys have guts.
All right, perfect. And then remember, Colin Kaepernick is going to start for the 49ers this week, so I'm sure that'll be interesting. We'll see what happens there. Thank you for watching, everybody. Remember, every single week, this is NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. And for Mr. Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. We'll see everybody next week.